Hi, it's Jody. I'm going to do something a little different today because apparently the kinds of things that I'm thinking about are so dangerous that they can't be verbalized on YouTube. So think about that. I have been grappling with something actually for a while since I was working at Smith. But it's gotten very urgent. It's an urgent question most recently. And that is, why do some people see very clearly what is going on and where it's leading? In fact, it's not just clearly, it's blindingly obvious to some people. And other people do not. They do not see it. And that's been nagging at me. And I still don't know the answer, but there's this one story that I keep thinking of. And I think that's the closest I'm going to get. And I think it's significant because it's an old story. And it means that this question has been asked before. And that the story that we are now living in, or the things we're now going through, are not new. So I wanted to share the story with you. And I'm going to tell it in my own words. It is the story of Cassandra. Cassandra was a mortal woman. She's a character in a Greek myth. She was a mortal woman with whom a god was in love with. The god Apollo was in love with Cassandra, and he wooed her in part by giving her a gift, and that was the gift of prophecy. So the gift of vision. Cassandra could see and foretell what was going to happen. However, when Cassandra rejected Apollo's advances, he got very angry. And because a god cannot revoke a gift once it's given, he instead added to the gift. And what he added was a curse. And the curse was that although she could foresee the future, no one would ever believe her. And part of the curse was also that she had to verbalize what she saw. She could not remain silent. So Cassandra lived in a village, and she would have these visions and she would speak them out loud. And it wasn't just a matter of mere disbelief. It wasn't like her people heard what she was saying and thought about it and said, no, actually you're wrong, or I don't believe you because X, Y, and Z. It was more than that. It was that the things she was saying were so far outside the realm of the possible in their minds that they couldn't even conceptualize it. The words she was speaking came out as gobbledygook to them. It was wah, 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 like Charlie Brown's teacher. It was just nonsense. That's all they heard. And so they wrote her off. They said, oh, she's crazy, you're insane. And this was painful for Cassandra, naturally, because the things she was seeing were already disturbing in and of themselves. But when she spoke them out loud, her own people turned on her and cast her off as crazy. So not only was she seen as crazy, but she had no solace, no validation, nothing. So anyway, one day Cassandra has a vision and she speaks it out loud, and she says, someone's going to ring the doorbell, and we're going to open the gates, and there's going to be a giant wooden horse outside the door. And we're going to bring this horse in, but inside the belly of the horse, there are a bunch of men who, after we go to sleep that night, they're going to jump out of the belly of the horse and they're going to kill us all. And her people were like, what the fuck is she talking about? A giant wooden horse? Like a horse that's an animal made out of wood, and it's giant, and there's going to be human beings inside the horse, that's crazy. That's craziness. And they said, you're crazy. And they wrote her off. Well, lo and behold, one day the doorbell rings and they open the gates and there is a giant wooden horse. And they are so overwhelmed by the magnitude and the beauty and this by something they had never seen before, that they don't remember what Cassandra said. I mean, it came out as gobbledygook anyway. They don't remember it, and they're also just so overwhelmed. And they say, "Oh, this must be a gift from the gods. There's no way this is man-made. They've never seen anything like this before." And they bring this horse into the village, and so Cassandra comes running out with an axe, and she starts hacking away at this horse because she's like, I gotta show them. I got to cut open this horse and show them that there's people in here who intend to do harm to us. And her people are like, oh my God, now she's really gone crazy. So they take her and they lock her up for her own protection because she is now considered a harm to herself and others. So Cassandra's locked up and her people have a feast to celebrate this gift. And I don't know, maybe they think that this gift means that now everything's going to be good and it's the solution to all their problems. They definitely thought it was something very good and they celebrated. And then that night they went to sleep and the men jumped out of the belly of the horse and slaughtered them all. The end. Epilogue. Cassandra was not murdered. She was made the concubine of King Agamemnon and was later murdered by Agamemnon's wife and her lover. So very toxic family dynamics going on there. But that was how Cassandra died. So I think this story is significant because everything we go through on an individual and cultural level, both, have been gone through before. And the questions we're asking have been asked before. And there is some solace in that, at least for me. And also stories in general are significant, and this one too, because this was a tragedy. This is a massacre that occurred. And stories can help us in a way that nothing else can, because they help us to process senseless things that happen. When I am faced with things that I don't understand in my own life, like tragedy and trauma, I find stories very helpful. I either look for stories that can help me to ascribe meaning to what's occurring, or I come up with new ones. If I can't find a story, I tell a story and create a story, like a myth, if you will, of my own, to help me process what's going on. And I think what's going on right now is that we are facing a loss that is so significant and so massive that many of us cannot even begin to comprehend it or look at it or see it. And those of us who can, I think we need help to ascribe some kind of sense and meaning to it. And stories can help us do that. I used to think, and that is why stories have been around for so long, I used to think way back this summer that the artists and musicians and songwriters, that it was our job as artists right now in this moment in time to help us to hang on to something that's very important. But now I think that it is our job to help us to let go of that something. And that what we are faced with now is the task of grieving. Grieving a very big loss. And grieving is difficult. And grieving a loss of this magnitude is big. It's a big deal. And there's no roadmap as to what comes next. But I do know that we can't get to the what comes next until we grieve our losses. And I think that the best thing I can do is to help others to recognize and come to terms with and grieve and move through this very, very, very difficult process. And so that is why I'm making this video today. And that is why I am calling on all the artists and philosophers and storytellers to find the stories for us and put them out there, or create new ones. That this is your job right now, and we need you. I hope that helps. Let's keep talking.